Hi again, hope you're well. The new swing room is finished. So, all our videos now, once we get the projector up and running, can show you some different bits and bobs. So it's just going to add on a couple of things. Well, that's more for me, less for you. Let's go over what we want to touch on. Now, I absolutely agree that we do potentially need to increase the launch angle with driver, right? However, a couple of the things that you're doing, whilst, like I said, you're a good player, you're going to be able to figure it out, you're doing lots of good things, but whilst those things that you've tried to do have actually kind of put you back into some old tendencies and habits that we don't ideally want. Now, we know notoriously in the past that we want to get too much this way, okay? That then makes you side bend more and get a little bit stuck, having to present now the heel and the blocks right, okay? So when you start to go left hip higher, yes, I would completely agree that would be one thing to go, right, well, I'm going to increase the launch. But it's very important that all of these things are specific to each individual, okay? So if you read a textbook, you'd go, right, well, we probably want pelvis slightly left, a little bit more shoulder tilt, and we're going to stay behind it, hit up on it, right? Now, I agree with that in theory, but if you do that with yourself, who already does too much of this, that's not the solution, okay? Equally, if I said to you, someone like an Alex Noren, okay, if you wrote in a textbook, right, well, you're going to feel like you go massively over the top, okay, and you chop down into it, you'd read the text and go, oh, don't do that. But for him, because of his tendency, which is to go too much this way, the intention of him going like that and chopping into the ground actually hits the middle spot somewhere, okay? So we need to make sure we're doing the correct thing for you. Now, going back onto what we've mentioned, right? If I go left hip high, it's making me do more of this. Then I'm going to get a little bit more stuck. It also moves the swing direction more rightwards, hence where you're getting those iffy strikes from and the pop-ups. Now, the more I side bend, and we've mentioned this before, right? But the more I side bend, I can't actually then afford to shallow the shaft, right? Because then I'd hit the ground back here. But if I kept this position, which looks exceptionally shallow, but I didn't have as much side bend, all of a sudden now that looks like a normal downswing, okay? Now, I'm not expecting you to get into necessarily this position, right? But we know that the more we side bend in order to strike it, not fat it, I then actually have to go more and more this way and more this way. Apologies for any background noise, there's a function going on inside the clubhouse. So the more I side bend, the more I have to go this way, which steepens the angle of attack and lowers the launch, okay, and causes that pop-up. So how for you do we increase launch angle and remove the iffiness of the strikes and the kind of direction stuff? Well, we need to essentially get this club shallower, but we can only do that once we reduce side bend, okay? So in terms of in terms of setup stuff, don't worry too much about going left hip high. I just go pretty neutral, okay? Yeah, you can go ball position further forward, that's going to help the launch. Now, we want to reduce how much of this handle drag you have, so we need to reduce how much side bend, okay? We can then give you a drill. So the way I want you to reduce your side bend, again, is completely all backswing. We're seeing a little bit too much of this, okay? So I want you, again, to just do the same intention where we're going to feel like that lead hip comes off of the imaginary wall, okay? So we feel like we get a bit more of this. Will you get there? Absolutely not. You'll probably end up somewhere here. Great. Here's then the bit where we're going to move on to get this more shallow and up the angle of attack without us having to feel like we're leaning back. So if this club is going to come from more behind you and the arm's more behind you, that would definitely shallow our angle of attack and improve path, okay? Now, how are we going to get there? Again, number one has to be backswing. So we get to do some pause ones where we feel like left hip comes off the wall. From that top of backswing position, we're going to do some pause drills. So we're going to go left hip off the wall and stop. I then want you to feel that we get the hands and arms to fall to about your right pocket. So it's going to feel like you're putting your hands in your pocket. Okay. Obviously, you're not going to pull it in here, but they're going to fall down towards there. We're then going to stop again. I'm then going to get you to just rotate. Okay. So the pause drill that we're going to do is a two-section pause. Okay, so this is the pace that I want you to do it at, and I also, once you've done the pause, don't want you to go pause, then back up and hit. Okay, so we're only trying to hit this like 10 yards, right? So let's make the backswing where the hip comes off the wall, arms fall to right pocket, turn. We're then going to go, right, can we remove the pauses? So then the next phase might be, right, well, I'm going to give it exact same intention in backswing, hip comes off wall, hands fall to right pocket and turn. But now I'm going to do no pauses, but very slow. So we're going to go like that. Then it's just simply a case of upping the speed, monitor it on video, obviously send it to me whenever, monitor it on video. When we start to go up and up in speed, do we lose this and go a bit more this way? Do we then get a little bit more of this? If you feel like you get to 70% and that starts to happen, drop it back down again and start to work your way back up, okay? So we basically need to go for you, yes, increase launch angle and change angle of attack to stop the poppy ones and the strike. Okay, I'd obviously launch it higher, but for you, doing it in this way is just going to lead you back into your old tendencies. It needs to happen in a different way, which is how, and the way it's going to happen is by getting the arms and hands into a more shallow position behind you, which will then force you to open up onto it with the chest. The angle of attack will go up because the ball's then forward. Okay, so send me those drills when you next get a chance, and do some monitoring regarding this move. That's kind of your key. Then it's just that next bit of letting those hands and arms fall back behind you to change that angle of attack.